This is the XT View from Phanteks, and it could quite possibly be the case you've been waiting for. It offers a great blend of form and function, allowing builders to achieve that fish tank style look plenty of us have grown fond of since the rise of the dual chamber chassis. Oh, and not to mention, it comes loaded with plenty of RGB lighting from the get-go. These bottom fans though, they are bonus, and I added them in myself. I believe the Height Y40 was the first to give us this kind of aesthetic in early 2023, but now Phanteks have joined the game and they're offering the XT View at a very affordable price, though there's no vertical GPU riser like you get with the Height Y40. Though, in its default state, out of the box, the XT View could catch many new builders off guard and leave them wondering how their PC components have gotten so hot inside this thing. A little bit more on that later. Priced at just £75 in the UK and $80 in the US, the XT View includes 3 Phanteks M25 120 D-RGB fans, worth around $30 on their own. They're also easily available to buy, which is always a bonus. I'm really not a big fan of when companies use just random fans for their cases that you can't go out and purchase, so matching the case fans that come with it to off-the-shelf fans is literally impossible. I'm glad to see Phanteks have taken the other approach here. The XT View is available in black or white, and each version has fans that match each color. I also love that the white model has color matched every single case cable for the interior, including the HD audio cable that is just pure white. Not just white sleeving up until the ugly, multicolored wires are sticking out the end. Good job, Phanteks. However, the XT View is also compatible with Asus BTF and MSI's Project Zero motherboards, so if you're plugging everything in around the back, the color of the cables might not bother you. The XT View only supports the full-size ATX models of those reverse connection boards. You can't get away with the micro ATX versions in this case. Now let's shift gears a little and take a closer look at the XT View. Once I got my sample out of the box, I noticed something that initially worried me. The tempered glass side panel was popped out of the frame and stuck in position. I loosened the chunky thumb screws that held it in place, but it just wouldn't budge. It wasn't until I unscrewed the ventilated panel covering the PSU that it eventually came free. I'm not sure whether to praise Phanteks for allowing the removal of that ventilated panel, or curse them for making me worry I'll be picking up shards of tempered glass for the next few months. On that note though, I am a big fan of how the XT View is put together. Both side panels have chunky silver thumb screws to match the white of the case, the bottom ventilated panel has a single silver Phillips head screw, and the piece of glass at the front of the case is held in place with 4 more screws, all of which become visible once you've removed the other panels first. We all love a tallest design, but I can appreciate the use of screws on a more budget-orientated case, and I appreciate them a lot more than the use of rivets. The whole frame of the XT View is extremely solid and well built. The metal side panel is pretty sturdy, even with the cutout for the mesh, and the entire frame of the case is made of steel. The only plastic I can see is on the buttons at the top and the feet. However, once you have removed all those panels, the XT View will lose much of its rigidity. That top corner where the 2 glass panels meet up here, in particular, becomes exceptionally flexible, and I'd make sure you're extremely careful when building in this thing not to lean on it or place anything heavy on top of it when the front glass isn't installed. Moving around the exterior, we can see that the XT View comes equipped with 2 dust filters, one that removes from the rear of the chassis to prevent dust from entering the power supply, and one on the top that's held in place with super strong magnets around its perimeter. It would have been nice if there was a neat little tab like you saw in the Corsair 4000D to make removing it slightly more accessible, especially if you don't have the longest fingernails. Though you can't see any screws bulging through the dust filter from the top mounted radiator or fans, so I'm always happy with that. While we're up here, let's quickly look at that I/O. You get one USB Type-A 3.0 port, one USB Type-C 3.2 Gen 2 port, and a combined headphone and microphone jack. You also have some nice clicky power and reset buttons, and 2 more buttons for the RGB control. One of those buttons will control the mode or effect, whilst the other button will adjust the color of that particular effect. I'm always grateful to see physical buttons for the RGB lighting on a case, and the D-RGB that Phanteks uses always has plenty of effects and color options ready to go. I quite like this blue and yellow one. Of course, you can always just connect this to your motherboard with a 3-pin addressable cable and use that if you wish instead. But that's enough waffling about the outside. Let's strip off the XT View's panels and take a closer look at the inside. The first thing you will spot is the M25 120mm D-RGB fans. Then after a few seconds, you'll notice something odd. The 2 fans on the right-hand side of the motherboard are not reverse blade fans. They're just regular fans set to exhaust. Not only that, but these M25 fans daisy chain to each other with bonus headers sticking out the side of each fan. So in the default configuration, these are super obvious and kind of stick out like a sore thumb. If you swap these around to the intake, you can hide the connections a little bit easier and allow some cool air inside of the PC instead of just a ton of negative pressure from the pure exhaust setup. One thing I will mention is that if you do decide to just grab some reverse blade fans for the side, like the thicker Phanteks D30 fans, you could potentially run into some clearance issues with longer and larger GPUs. So just a heads up to measure that before you go and grab some D30s. There are a few other nice little touches to point out though. I always love to see the cutout for the GPU cable in the basement, though it does get covered up if you plan on mounting some fans down the bottom like I've done here. We also get a closer look at the integrated LED strip. Well, not literally, because it's hidden inside a beautifully diffused profile next to the tempered glass. All this requires is a single D-RGB connection to one of the existing fans to work. It's super bright and offers a ton of light inside the system, but you could always just unplug it if you don't like it. The expansion slots feature the same nice thumb screws that match the side panels, and all of the screws included in the accessory box for the motherboard and fans are all silver too, in the white model that is. I appreciate Phanteks' commitment to the white and silver theme here. This poor case is just crying out for an all white or white and silver build, not the mishmash of grey and black components I've thrown inside here for testing. When it comes to compatibility in the XT View, you have support for two 120mm fans on the right hand side of the motherboard. There's no room for 140mm fans on the side. If you want to mount a 240mm radiator to the side where those fans are, you'll need to grab some kind of vertical GPU riser. Otherwise, the radiator and fans will make contact with the graphics card. At the top of the case, you can mount up to 3 120 or 2 140mm fans, or a 360 or 280mm radiator. The rear supports just a single 120mm fan or radiator, and above the PSU shroud, you can mount an additional 3 120mm fans. You can install up to 5 SSDs inside the XT View, with 3 on the removable caddy over the rear of the CPU socket, and 2 in the removable hard drive cage. The cage is held in place with just a single screw from below, so you can easily remove it if you want more room for cable extensions or just excess cables. I will quickly point out though that when the case is lit up with all the RGB, you can kind of see your cable mesh through the mesh of the PSU shroud below the tempered glass panel. So the hard drive cage may be handy for hiding some cables more subtly. Maximum GPU length is up to 415mm in length, and if you opt for a CPU tower cooler, you've got plenty of clearance, up to 184mm in height. So overall, it's pretty compatible with even the largest GPUs and coolers. Now, cable management is something I'm always pretty picky about regarding these case reviews. I love to see straps, clips, channels, grooves, anything to guide you. But with a case designed for these reverse connection motherboards, does all that disappear? When it comes to the XT View, it certainly seems that way. There's nothing but a couple of cable tie points here and there to help you out. Having fans mounted to the side of the motherboard removes one of the main cable channel routes that you can use, so I had to make my own using the SSD caddy. I honestly couldn't imagine mounting any SSDs on that thing, but more importantly, trying to find somewhere to neatly run the power and SATA cables for each or any drive, to be honest. You have up to 25mm in clearance behind the motherboard, which is plenty for most standard layouts. However, if you do opt for that BTF or Project Zero board, I think you will struggle to manage cables like the 24-pin ATX or the USB 3 and Type-C cables, as they're just not all that flexible. Traditionally, if you need a bit more room around the back, you can just push a little extra slack into the main chamber of the case. With the reverse connection boards, you've got to hide all of that slack around the back, and I feel like that kind of style offers itself a lot better to a dual chamber kind of case. If you're going to offer a case that supports these new motherboards, you could probably provide a little more room for those awkward, hard to bend cables I just mentioned, or maybe include some 90-degree adapters with the case if they're needed. With all that said, I didn't struggle too much with the cable management and closing the side panel, but this is likely because my test setup is minimal and I'm getting used to creating my own cable management routes in these more budget-friendly cases. Now let's talk about thermals, and if you're looking at this case and expecting it to be an airflow monster, you can probably work out that it'll be a little bit underwhelming without even putting any components inside it. Then, when you remember that the default configuration has everything set to exhaust, that won't help anything. So under our combined CPU and GPU stress test, things don't look too good out of the box for the XT View, with the CPU hitting just shy of 80 degrees Celsius. Keeping the side fans set to exhaust and installing 3 more M25 120mm fans in the basement only dropped the temperatures by 1 degree. Changing those side fans to intake instead of exhaust actually made a larger impact, reducing the CPU temperatures down to a more modest 76.5 degrees. Then with the side fans set to intake and the 3 fans on the PSU shroud, we got as low as 76.1 degrees on the CPU. Not too bad, but not the best. GPU temperatures follow the same trend. Adding more fans, but keeping the side fans set to exhaust, keeps things pretty toasty, but setting the sides to intake cools things down quite a bit. Adding 3 more 120mm fans helps cool things down a bit more for the GPU as well. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Mounting fans above the PSU shroud is kind of pointless. Switching the side fans to intake causes a much more noticeable temperature decrease. In a case like the XT View, it's probably more about looks rather than performance anyway, so I wouldn't blame anybody for mounting some fans at the bottom here. I guess one bonus is that the XT View actually has a ventilated PSU shroud to make it slightly more reasonable, In comparison to the other cases I've recently tested, the XT View doesn't look great in its default configuration. It's right near the bottom of the pile, on par with a 4000D that only includes 2 terrible fans. Switching those Phanteks M25 fans around though puts the XT View on par with the Corsair 3000D RGB for CPU temperatures. For GPU temperatures, it can't quite compete with the 3000D RGB though. With the fans set to intake, it's firmly in the middle of the pack. The default configuration though has it planted firmly at the bottom again, just ahead of the woeful Deepcool CC560. When purchasing the XT View, you should absolutely consider switching those side fans to intake. The only downside is they won't look as pretty, and you'll see the ugly Phanteks sticker in the middle. However, you should be able to hide the nasty daisy chain connectors a little more easily. Alternatively, you could grab some reverse style blade fans from another manufacturer, but before you spend more money, have a quick listen to the 3 M25 fans that come with the XT View. So, to sum everything up, the Phanteks XT View is a case that's all about looks, style, and form over function. For just £75, you get £30 worth of fans, which is always nice, and a chassis that looks incredible once your build is complete. Not to mention that super clean RGB strip next to the glass, just to top everything off. It lacks some quality of life features, but for the price, it's definitely a statement piece in your setup. If you're after something that's just a bit more premium or something with more customization and higher build quality, you could also look at the MV5 from Phanteks. At just £15 more than the XT View, you get a case that looks absolutely stunning. However, it doesn't come equipped with any fans, and you could well end up spending more money on fans than what you paid for the case in the first place. The thermals inside the XT View are fine once you switch those fans around, and the M25 fans are more or less silent and idle. I can barely hear this system. Other than the non-existent cable management and just trying to find a neat route to hide all of the cables around the back of the motherboard tray, there's not a lot to hate here. So if you're in the market for a PC case that looks like it costs a lot more than it actually did, and offers pretty great value in that case, I think the XT View from Phanteks is a stunning case that I can recommend. Assuming you're not loading this thing with the hottest CPUs and GPUs in the world, and just keeping that stock fan configuration. If that is your plan, however, check out some of my other videos for ideas on some better airflow options. The budget Air 903 from Montec I checked out a few weeks ago is perfect for that. Anyway guys, that brings us to the end of the video. What do you think? Could you see yourself grabbing the Phanteks XT View? If you'd like me to check out any other PC gaming cases, leave your suggestions in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed this video, please click that like button, and if my face hasn't offended you, don't forget to get subscribed. If you want to check out the XT View or any other products I may have mentioned or use in this system, please check the description for my affiliate links. It really helps out the channel if you purchase something through those links. I'll catch you in the next one guys. Cheers.